Some bad news with Troy Everett. He's going to have a surgery, but we'll hope to see him back by the end of fall camp or so. And if anybody can do it, he will. And in any position that you can do it, he will. And we got great doctors and a great plan for him. He's going to have his surgery tomorrow.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. And 30 minutes with Brent Venables on Tuesday night, talking about a number of things. He got into a lot of player standouts from over the course of here over the spring.
The entire roster.
The entire roster is basically what he went over, but we'll get into plenty of that here in a second. Obviously, the Troy Everett news, a really good time to join SoonerScoop.com, the site. I know that everybody comes here to the YouTube page, but plenty of stuff to get into. A lot of transfer portal stuff in terms of the basketball side of things. Brent Venables hit on the transfer portal, which we'll probably get into here on the back end of the week. We want to stick with kind of the meat and potatoes of what was said on Tuesday night, but a great promo right now. The spring special here, spring ball special, $1 for a month. And I think that is about as good as it gets in terms of the content that we are producing over at SoonerScoop.com. Plenty of stuff from Bob, plenty of stuff from you, George, plenty of stuff from Josh as well in terms of the high school stuff that has been ramping up. I know that we talked to him on Tuesday talking about the Torrey Blaylock commitment. Trent Wilson, his name has been out there in terms of setting a commitment date that we got into, and it certainly seems like Oklahoma is in a really good spot for the services of a four-star defensive tackle. We'll get into some of the freshman defensive tackles here coming up over the course of the program today. But we need to start with Troy Everett. It was, you never want to have injury news, certainly during the spring, and in terms of a position that, I think is under a little bit of the gun in terms of, preparing themselves for what's to come next season. But Troy Everett's going to miss the rest of spring.
Yeah, tough loss. No way around it. It's a tough loss for Oklahoma in terms of this was a guy that they anticipated was going to be a starter for them up front. And when you talk about rebuilding an offensive line from the ground up, you really want that center to kind of be your leading voice, your guy that's kind of pointing guys in the right direction. And he was having a really good spring. So that it's a tough loss, but I think that Oklahoma has some guys that they do like. I think Josh Bates is someone that we've heard a lot about. He's kind of stepped up in Everett's absence, but he's also not had the best spring, I would say. I think he still has a lot of growing and maturing to do. Josh Iasosa, the kid from Edmond, true freshman, he's been playing some center too. Landon Hatchett, I keep saying Landon Hatchett. Garen Hatchett.
I believe in you.
Garen Hatchett, the transfer from Washington, he's also someone that they think can maybe – he's been injured, but he's also somebody that could maybe fill in for Everett. Now, they do expect Everett to be back, as Brent said, hopefully by sometime during fall camp, by the end of fall camp at the latest. So we'll see. We don't exactly know what he's having surgery on. I do know that it's not the ACL, because if it was the ACL, he'd be out a lot longer than obviously just fall camp. So it sets him back for sure, but it also says, hey, maybe they'll go look in the portal and see if they can't find a veteran center too.
Yeah, I think offensive line is going to be something that they focus on. But like you said, it's injuries are bad, especially when you want development along the offensive line, particularly at a position like center. But the good news is you haven't ruled him out for the 2024 season.
Right.
I think that was kind of the most important thing that came out of yesterday.
Definitely, because we saw him go down in practice, last Wednesday, a week from today, and I think that everybody kind of fears the worst, especially when you hear knee injury. But to hear that it wasn't one that he's going to have to miss the season, at least that's the way it looks right now, that's great news, because he's also a guy that has played some football. I mean, we forget that he was a starter at Appalachian State, both at guard and center a couple years ago, did get some reps last year for Oklahoma. So, he's a guy that, again, you'd love for him to be there for the cohesion of spring ball and summer and obviously fall camp. But he is somebody that if he can get back and maybe even progress a little bit faster than what they anticipate, then you feel good about him going into the season. It's just one of those things, Eddie. It's just one thing after another for that offensive line right now.
Right. And, so there you go. That's kind of the situation with Troy Everett. Brent Venables did disclose yesterday he is scheduled to have surgery on Wednesday. And obviously you hope that rehabilitation process, stays on track and they can get him back maybe towards the end of some point in August, I would think. When I think fall camp, you're talking about the first portion of the season, before school really begins and all that kind of stuff, before they break, before the actual start of the season. So Josh Bates is the next man up at center. Brent Venables kind of talked about everything in between on the offensive line on Tuesday.
Josh Bates will slide in there and play some center, along with Josh Asosa. And then Garen Hatchett can always play center, play guard, can really play all 5 positions. But, Jake Taylor and Jacob Sexton have done, really, really well. Logan Howland, along with Spencer Brown and Michael Tarquin. Those guys have all done a really, really nice job trying to, gel together and learn, some of the new guys learn what we need them to do. Again, young guy Isaiah Autry's been doing some really good things. And then, again, inside, like where we're at. Again, feel good about the guys that we have inside, and some of them have experience and some of them don't have as much experience, but like what we have and what's coming, both. And really going to be we've got some great young players that have a chance to be really, really special, and hopefully we can get them to that point to, a winning level, sooner rather than later.
It seems like, and this is something that we have talked about time before. It seems like we mention it in every single one of these post-practice reports in terms of spring ball. Continued, I think praise would be the right word, of Heath Ozida.
Yeah, he's a guy that we have heard about a lot, and I feel like I keep talking about him on this program and the unofficial 40, but it's because he's had an incredible spring. I think he's almost, I wouldn't say totally locked up a starting spot. I think all those spots are kind of up for grabs, but he's definitely the front runner to win one of those guard spots along with Fabichi Wiwu. I think that he's had a really good spring, and he's as close to being locked up as a starter too. And that's what you feel good is okay, you lose your guy that you think is going to be your starting center, but they feel really good about those 2 guard spots. And then at tackle, I think it's just okay, who fits the right spot? I think they've got some nice bodies. They got some nice players there, and Jacob Sexton and Michael Tarquin at left tackle. You've got Spencer Brown and Jake Taylor at right tackle. It's just kind of mixing and matching, see who fits with what group best. And so you've got the right pieces, Eddie. I don't know if they have enough pieces, like in terms of depth, but you do have some nice pieces that if they can find the right 5, it can be a pretty good group. Maybe not the best group in the SEC, maybe middle of the pack, but definitely better than what I think some people are giving them credit. It's just, man, they cannot suffer any more injuries up front for sure. Like I said, they don't have a depth. They have a lot of young guys. I mean, Daniel Akinkunmi, I've heard, had a really good spring. Eugene Brooks, you heard Isaiah Autry there. Like, they've got some young talent. It's just they don't have a ton of guys that have played some meaningful college football
We
yet.
would kind of put Logan Howland somewhere in between young group and kind of turning the corner to be somebody that you need to go a little bit. You need to start making a little bit of a presence.
Yeah, he could be somebody. It would not shock me at all if he comes out of the spring and they're like, hey, he's competing for a starting spot. It's same with down in the fall here in August soon. I think that it would not be a surprise to anybody. He's super athletic, a guy that's put on some good weight. I think that he's really physical. He's just adjusting to the position. He was a tight end in high school. Last year was a big growing period for him. I think he's someone, again, he's kind of like Keith Ozada, where all of a sudden you start hearing about him and he's starting for you, or he's playing some meaningful contributing snaps. So he's another one to watch. Again, you like some of the pieces. It's just some of these guys, you haven't seen them play a whole lot.
No doubt about it. From the offensive line, we move to the defensive line. I think you sense a theme here when we're talking about Oklahoma during the spring. It's been talked about, obviously, David Stone, Jaden Jackson, those guys coming in. And, we talked about it a little bit on the Unofficial 40 this week on the podcast in terms of, I think it's safe to say that the freshman group is maybe a little bit ahead of schedule, just in terms of maybe what you thought you were getting with their, second month on campus.
Which is crazy to say considering some of the expectations for these guys. But just from hearing from the coaching staff, especially Brent yesterday, talking about some of these defensive linemen, these guys, I walked away saying, okay, they're going to play. And I think that was the expectation going in is we thought they were going to play. But now I'm like, okay, they're really going to be in the rotation. And you talk about a guy like Jaden Jackson who's come in, and I think he's ready to play tomorrow. He's that fundamentally sound. I think his floor is higher than David Stone's, but David Stone's ceiling is super high. And I think that hearing about David Stone, well, I'm sure we have the clip here in a second, but the way that he's progressed and he's learning, you see flashes. It's can he consistently do it on a snap-to-snap basis? And I think the more he gets in there in spring and then fall and then obviously during the season, he's just going to get better and better. So it's great to hear some of those guys. I know Nigel Smith's had a really good spring as well. So that's huge because that's a defensive line room, Eddie, that you look at. You've got DJ Terry and then everybody else really hasn't played a whole lot.
Sure.
And so you need some of those young guys. You don't need all of them, but you need a couple of them, the David Stones, the Jaden Jacksons of the world, to step up and be contributors next year.
When you bring in a guy that has the, I think kind of the notoriety that somebody like a David Stone has, a little bit of a savior of the position, if you will,
Yep.
the next great Gerald McCoy, the next great Tommy Harris, anytime that you hear those names alongside somebody that, simply hasn't done anything in a Sooner uniform yet, I think you're always a little bit cautious in a way.
Yep.
But when you hear something like this from Brent Venables, I think you feel a little bit better.
There's not a more humble, hardworking guy on our team than David Stone right now. And, and he'd be the first to tell you, man, I got a lot to learn, a lot to get better at. But, man, he's showing up every day with that mindset. That's how you do it. And we try to recruit that. We try to be very intentional about that. And then sometimes you just get lucky.
It's interesting you hear that, and I think that it was obviously a positive. I mean, I think David Stone every day is showing up, taking care of business, doing probably even a little bit, exceeding those expectations, even though they were so sky high.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that, and this is just kind of my personal belief, I think that was a little bit of a challenge. I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna give you a little bit of love in front of the media. You're obviously going to see that out there on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. You need to keep doing it day in and day out. I think that Brent Venables has tested him a little bit.
And you heard that in Brent's first opening statement yesterday. It was talking about, hey, today's practice is over. You got to keep doing it every single day. And I'm sure David, I think all the true freshmen probably struggle with that a little bit of bringing it every single day.
Sure.
and being your best every single day. And so I think that that's the challenge for David is, okay, you had a great practice today. You got the praise from Coach Venables today, but can you do it again on Thursday? Can you do it when they scrimmage the next time? Can you do it in the spring game? Can you do it in every single summer workout? Those sorts of things. And I think David's the kid that, look, the expectations are so high for him. I do think he's taking the right approach. And
Sure.
Like you said, you have to be cautious with guys like that. I mean, I remember covering Buki a few years ago. And
A great example of a five-star that did not work out.
Exactly. And so you have to be careful with, giving him too high of expectations. But I do think just watching him in practice, he's soaking in. He's not, trying to be too loud. I think sometimes these true freshmen come in and they try to be a leader from day one. And yeah, you appreciate, the effort and the vocalness from some of those guys. But for someone like David, I think he knows, okay, I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to get better at, and he wants to. So it's good to see that. It's going to be fun to watch his career because I do think his ceiling is as high as some of those guys you mentioned, Gerald McCoy, Tommy Harris. And if he can get to that level, Oklahoma's going to be really good. So it's good to hear that, though, from Brent. And I think it's also not only a challenge for David, but a lot of those guys in that room of saying, hey, this true freshman's coming and he's done all the right stuff. You better also do all the right stuff or else you're going to get passed up by.
Let's talk about some of these other guys. DJ Terry obviously is kind of seen as I believe like he would be like the captain of that position group, especially on the interior. We have heard some positives, though, out of spring camp, out of the scrimmage last week on Thursday. Devon Sears, guys like that obviously are stepping into kind of a little bit of a role that the light needs to come on. You have to be some type of contributor. Grayson Holton in that group as well.
I think people forget about those two because Devon Sears transferred in from Texas State a year ago, really didn't have a whole lot of playing time last year because of the depth and experience they had. Kind of took a year to kind of grow and mature. He's had a really good spring. I think back to the one-on-ones a couple weeks ago. He had a really good move. I think it was it on Bates, maybe, I think he beat. But he's put on a lot of good weight. I think he's become a little bit more physical, kind of fine-tuned some of those details. So is he somebody that could maybe can contribute? And then Grayson Holton, we've seen the flashes. I mean, I remember his true freshman year, there were some games where you're like, oh, who's this kid? And then last year kind of fell outside of the shuffle again because of how many older guys they had in that room. Sounds like both those guys have gotten up, I think, around 290, 295. If you can get them to around 300 by the season, you're feeling really good. And so If you can get those two guys on top of DJ Terry, and then you get, Jaden Jackson and David Stone, that's a pretty good 5-man rotation. Maybe you add another guy in the transfer portal. It looks like they're trying to, at least somebody that has some experience, but that's a pretty talented group that you could feel good about.
Here is Brent Venables on Tuesday talking about his interior defensive line.
With DJ Terry, he's been a great leader, really great leader. And then, I really think that Grayson is going to play his best football since he's been here. He's pushing 295, looks really good. And then Devon Steers, he's playing his best. He's the most improved probably of that group of returning players. And he's powerful. He's close to 300 pounds. He's got great quickness, really strong at the point of attack, heavy hand, but he can rush the passer. And then, Champ Sanders has been doing great. And then I know it's been talked about a lot with Jaden and Stone and Marcus Strong, those guys.
Champ Sanders, Marcus Strong, kind of some guys that are maybe forgotten about and maybe a couple years away from really, truly contributing, but certainly going to be part of that position group. Brent talked about yesterday just in terms of the defense, and we'll get a little bit more into this on Thursday, but I did want to point it out and hit on it. We've talked about leadership and that in terms of, basically every level of the defense, you have somebody that has contributed or somebody that is expected to be a big-time player at Oklahoma. I think the obvious ones are out there: Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, Kip Lewis, the list goes on and on. It does seem like this is a pretty comfortable position just in terms of the defense overall. They've had kind of, I don't want to put it like, I'll just say they've had their way with the offense and some of the scrimmages and some of the team stuff. While that is probably to be expected in a way, I think it's probably a good thing. And you might be stating the obvious. It's a good thing that they're dominating.
For sure. I think that you look at the guys that have come back, and you always, everyone just points to Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman, and of course, those guys are huge to have back. But even guys like Kip Lewis, who played a lot last year. You got Ethan Downs, who I think we just sometimes forget about. R. Mason Thomas is back. You've got Trace Ford, he played a lot of football. Even Robert Spears Jennings, who got some time last year. You've got a lot of guys that have just played a ton of football. Woody Washington maybe has played more than any of those guys. So I think that you look at that, and then you look at the depth they have. That's the thing that's impressive to me. It's not just experience. You've got a lot of young guys that are super talented, that are fighting to get playing time, that are fighting some of those older guys that we just mentioned to maybe beat them out. Jacoby Johnson at corner. You've got, Jaden Hardy, a true freshman that's come in and played a lot at safety. Brent was very high praise for him yesterday. You've got, Josiah Wagner, Makari Vickers, two guys that played a little bit last year at corner. So you've got so many different bodies back there that not only do you have the experience and the leadership, you've also just got way more talent than I can remember on that side of the ball in a long time.
Pretty comfortable thing for Zach Alley to come in and have to be able to, not only relate to the guys, but he has some good tools to use on that side of the football. So it's going to be interesting. It was the first time that we had really kind of talked to Brent Venables on Tuesday since he had opened up the spring. What about his quarterbacks? I think that was kind of one of the big not question marks, but I think that you just kind of gloss over it. You go, yeah, Jackson's going to be really good. Michael Hawkins has a chance to be really good. He's made some noise here early, but it was good to get a little bit of an insight into where they are.
Yeah, and I think that it is a big question mark because you're like, okay, is Jackson Arnold going to be that good? Is he going to be that leader that you need at that spot? And I think Brent kind of talking about that, kind of how he's led that room, as well as Casey Thompson,
Sure.
coming in and really just kind of being a veteran voice, a guy that's played a lot of football, played in a lot of different systems that can kind of pick things up fast and maybe help teach in that room a little bit, along with Seth Luttrell. And then Michael Hawkins. He's been kind of the standout in that group. And that's not to say the other guys haven't been good. I just think Michael Hawkins has maybe exceeded expectations a little bit for some of the people on staff or some of the fans out there that didn't know much about him. He's been really good in practice as the number 2 quarterback, and so I think that's great to hear. You look at it where it is this year versus where it was not only last year but especially 2 years ago. It's a very deep quarterback room, one of the more talented ones I would probably say in the country. Again, we'll have to see some of these guys do it on Saturdays,
right.
But I think there's a lot of talent in that room and potential to be really, really good.
Here is Brent Venables talking about his quarterback position group on Tuesday.
Again, the whole position's doing really good. Brendan Zerberg, he's gotten lots of reps too. And but between Jackson and Mike and Brendan and Booty, Casey's taking every mental rep. He's right there next to me. And when we got the team settings, I feel great. We're in the best position we've been in since we've been here. And we got a lot to still learn and get better at. That goes without saying. But we've got more, again, competitive depth there. I think more guys that are showing the ability to be able to get in the game and help us win. And so I've been really pleased with both progress, leadership, again, situationally, decision making. We're really showing some really great signs particularly for some young guys that haven't, played a lot of college football. Things to be excited about. Again, decision making, accuracy, toughness, pocket presence, those types of things, leadership.
Those are the little things that I wish that we were able to stick around for a little bit of team, just to be able to see some of these guys like a Mike Hawkins, sling the ball around when the bullets are flying.
And just command the offense.
Sure.
Like I want to see, how does Jackson, command an offense, whether that's getting the play call in, communicating to guys, changing, an audible, something like that. Is always useful to see. And that's why, again, there's so much you can take away from a spring game, but, I do think seeing those guys, especially you're going to see a lot of Michael Hawkins probably in that game, as well as Brendan Zerberg, who I think has also had a decent spring. Seeing those guys and see how they operate in that offense is going to be a lot of fun. And also just how Seth Luttrell calls games. I think that's obviously something we're not going to find out till August and September and October and all that. But I do think that it seems like that group is at least they've got the talent to, I think, be really good. It just, there's going to be some growing pains. I said it today on the Unofficial 40. Like, we forget that Jackson Arnold is only 20 years old. That's right. He hasn't played a lot of college football, and so it's going to take some time. But I do think that these guys have talent, and we've talked, a lot about some of the talent around them too.
And I think that's why there is a little bit of cautious optimism, I think, just in terms of when you're talking about Jackson making that jump into like the true starting role, as opposed to preparing for a month and taking over for a bowl game that at the end of the day is really not that meaningful.
Yeah.
It's going to be important for him to, and he's talked about this, and the one time that he talked to us during the spring, getting the ball out quicker, making better decisions with the football, just getting away from some of these freshman mistakes, even though he might still be a freshman. I think that could be one of the differences in going on the road and winning at Auburn or going on the road and winning in Columbia, something that, we probably don't talk about because it's not a whole lot of fun to talk about, oh, God, what if he sucks in one of these games? There's going to be moments throughout a game, and certainly the way that he responds from those low moments throughout the season, that's going to be important as he kind of really moves into this quarterback one role.
And I think this summer is going to be interesting too, because if you remember, Dylan Gabriel got a lot better this past offseason, right? And I think a large part of that was he spent his offseason working with those receivers, working on the offense, working with Jeff Lebby, those sorts of things in the summertime. He had that big, what was it? The
dime time retreat.
The dime time retreat. Like, does Jackson Arnold do? And that's not to say Jackson Arnold has to go do something like that, but I'm sure he's got things worked out with Deion Burks and Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson, those guys to do some throwing this summer, because that's where I think he can really improve too, is just the timing and those sorts of things. That's hard to do in a month's notice, for a bowl game, like you said, that's pretty meaningless. So I think that, look, spring ball is obviously huge in terms of learning the offense, but this summer I think too he can take a big step. So it's going to be fun to watch him from afar and see how he kind of grows into that. And he does seem to be, we talked about it on a report a couple weeks ago when we talked to him, he's definitely embracing the QB1 at Oklahoma type role and understands the importance of it and the expectations that he has. And I think that's step number one for the quarterback at Oklahoma is understanding that.
I think there are a lot of times, and I don't know if everybody's like this, but you hear somebody like a Drake Stoops talking about all the work that he put in with Dylan Gabriel during the summer and how important that was. At the time, you kind of go, whatever, and then you see it come to fruition on the field at the Cotton Bowl, or you see it come to fruition on on a Saturday down in Norman, And it is important. And I think it's going to be kind of fun because when you look at and some of the stuff that we've seen here over the course of the 3 times that we've now been out at practice, they got some tools, especially at the wide receiver position. You look at the tight end position that I know that we went into a little bit more in depth in one of the previous shows. I'm telling you, folks, and we didn't show the clip, but the way that Brent Venables talked about Caden Helms on Tuesday, I know. They got to get him out on the field. He's got to stay healthy, all that kind of stuff. Caden Helms, Bauer Sharp, Jake Roberts, those are 3 tight ends that I think you're going to see a whole lot in 2024.
They've got talent there, and it's going to be interesting to see how they use those guys because I think that they all kind of do different things. I mean, Caden Helms is a guy that I think, is somebody that you could split out and do a lot of different things with. He's really fast. He's physical.
I think
he's
Brent's
tall.
comment was you notice him when he's on the field.
Yes. I mean, he's definitely somebody that I think can help him. I think Bauer Sharp kind of does a little bit of everything. Super physical guy, super athletic, can run, played some quarterback. Like, he's just very dynamic. And then Jake Roberts. I mean, he's the veteran of the group, and we haven't seen him a lot in spring because he's been banged up, but I don't think they need to see him. They kind of know what you're getting with that guy.
The most experience out of everybody.
Right. And
maybe even combined.
That. Right.
To be honest.
Yeah, they just need that. They need that. And I think Devon Mitchell too. Look, we all know he looks the part. But I think it's going to take him some time. So be patient with him. It's going to take him, maybe a year to get his legs underneath him. And that's not to say he won't play next year. I do think they'll find some sort of role for him. It's hard not to for a guy that big, but I do think those other 3 guys could be huge playmakers. And don't forget about Cade McIntyre either. I do think that he's got a chance to play too, especially if one of these guys goes down.
Quite different in terms of depth at the tight end position now than what it was even a year ago. You look at the safety position, you look at the quarterback position. Specifically, the quarterback position was something that Brent talked about and how drastically different that thing was from the moment that they arrived on campus, they being the staff to what it is today. And, there's been a lot of hard work put in recruiting and developing both of those rooms. And we've talked about Jay Valai and Brandon Hall, how good those guys have been on the recruiting trail. And then not only getting the guys to campus, but developing them. And, it's going to be important on that side of the football, obviously.
The corners and safeties, man, that might be the deepest 2 rooms that they have right now in terms of just so many guys that you're like, well, how are they going to get all these guys on the field? And
it's almost like, what did they tell Des Malone to get him to come to Dorman from San Diego State? Because as much opportunity as there may be, you start going through the depth chart and it's like, yeah, that guy could play, that guy could play, that guy could play. Oh, I could buy into him playing.
I mean, and you forget Gentry Williams is not even going through spring, and he was their best corner last year when he was healthy. And you've got Kenai Walker, who I think is underrated. You've got Des Malone, like you said, Josiah Wagner, Makari Vickers. Woody Washington is back. He's kind of playing wherever. And then at safety, you've got Peyton Bowen, who I think is kind of vying for one of those starting spots. Billy Bowman obviously is back. Robert Spears Jennings, who I have kind of a man crush on. I think he's been awesome. You've got Jaden Hardy, Reggie Powers, Michael Boganowski, the 3 true freshmen who just they don't look like true freshmen out there, and they've been getting a lot of reps. So that secondary, there's a lot of battles there, and you feel really good about a lot of those guys coming in and playing.
It's going to be really interesting to see how it all comes together. And, obviously the first, I guess, true public setting that everybody will see is on April 20th for the spring game coming up here in a couple weeks. We've been to 3 practices now. We went on for about 30 minutes on Tuesday. Was there anything else that stuck out to you that, maybe you didn't notice the first 2 times around?
Nick Anderson was back practicing.
Sure.
I know that he had missed some time. He was suited up. I thought J.J. Hester, he's a guy. Look, that wide receiver room is loaded. There's a lot of guys trying to get on the field, but J.J. Hester had the best catch of the day.
Right. Over Peyton Bowen, too, which I think adds a couple points to it just because,
Peyton Bowen. But J.J. Hester is a guy that you wonder, can he find a way onto the field? I think Jaquez Petaway still looks good, but other than that, not a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the kicking battle's going on. I like I said, I think that's going to go well into fall camp. But both Tyler Keltner and Zach Schmidt have looked really good. We haven't seen Liam Evans a ton, at least in the 30 minutes that we get to see. I'm sure he's battling it out too. But I think Keltner and Schmidt were both good from about 49 yesterday, which it's indoors. There's no pressure. It is what it is. But at least they're making them in practice. So that's always a good sight to see.
I think it's going to be exciting to see the way that, just having a new voice in the room and Doug Deacon and maybe some, I don't know about new ideas, but just in terms of a fresh slate for everybody.
Well, you at least have some options. They didn't even have options last year.
That's right.
It was Zach Schmidt and no one else.
That's right.
So to at least have two other guys that can push Zach Schmidt, and also if Zach Schmidt, misses one, he has a short leash. I mean, you can pull him out and put in Keltner or Evans and give someone else a shot.
Competitive depth up and down the
Everywhere.
roster,
Yeah.
even at kicker.
Yeah.
Maybe Ben Anderson needs some competition over at deep snapper as well. So that's going to do it. A good practice report here. It was good to get back out there. It was good to talk to Brent Venables. We hadn't talked to him in a couple weeks here with spring ball getting underway, and now we're kind of somewhat at the midway point, maybe a little bit over the midway point. And it was good to get out there. It was good to hear some of that stuff. It'll be interesting to see if they can get or just what they're going to get out of Joshua Bates as he kind of steps into a little bit more prominent role maybe at the center position with the injury to Troy Everett. So we will be back at the end of the week to get into a little bit more of what Brent Venables had to say on Tuesday, maybe some bigger picture stuff, including a little bit of talk about how they're going to handle the spring portal, which I think is going to be very, very interesting here in weeks to come.
We should also maybe we'll get Josh McQuestion on the show.
That'd be
a
fun.
little portal stuff.
That'd be fun.
But I do think they're going to be active. They're not going to go out and get like 10 guys in the transfer portal in the spring, but I do think they could get 3 or 4 guys.
We always talk, and you brought this up on the podcast today that you can hear on all your podcast listening devices. But we always think about Oklahoma and what they're going to go out and need to get. Like they need to add bodies. There's a situation that you could lose a couple guys coming out of the spring.
Definitely. I mean, I think we just mentioned the depth at some of these spots. You wonder, does somebody in the cornerback room say, hey, I'm not going to find the field this year. I'm going to go look somewhere else. Maybe at linebacker, you've got so many guys at linebacker that, maybe somebody says, hey, I don't know if I'm going to find a role here. Maybe they leave, receivers in another position where you're like, can I get on the field?
There's only
this
so many
year?
guys you can put on the field at the
Exactly.
same time.
And so, I think it would be naive to think that, I think every program is saying, okay, we're probably going to lose a couple guys in the spring portal. Maybe some programs are losing more than that, but I don't expect like some mass exodus, obviously, in the spring, but it would not shock me at all. Like I said, I don't know any names. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but if some of those positions where we talked about so much depth that somebody says, man, I got to go find somewhere that I can get on the field next year.
It's going to be interesting to watch. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel next time.